Welcome to the PioneerCast. I'm DeWayne Ables, founder and president of PioneerIQ. I hope over the course of the next few minutes, you're able to get some new research and insights on how to help you better understand what's really going on within the minds of the people on your team and capture a few things that will help you better engage them and lead them to better impacting your team, your organization, and probably most importantly, the community. So today's a very different scenario. You've seen us in the studio, you've seen us on job sites. Today we're actually in my home, which maybe is why you're hearing a little bit of echo. But we've had Scott come over to the house and share with our team his journey, his life journey, some of the crazy turns that his life has taken in his career. And through a boot camp experience, really ignited this desire, this vision or dream to write a book that I'm really excited to share with you. So Scott, thanks for joining us and being here with me, man.
Hey, it's a beautiful home, and thank you for having me, and great podcast.
Yeah, man. So if you're an engineer or a contractor or somebody in the trades that does any sort of infrastructure around the state of Missouri, you probably know Scott. I'll let him tell you a little bit about his story. But as I was listening to you today, I thought, man, I've got so many managers and team leads and executives and owners in our industry that you're obviously in our world from an owner's side. Struggle with some of the same things that you've heard and thought about. So I'd love for you to share some of the research and topics around what ignited this whole thought process, what's happening in the workforce and post-COVID, and just help us understand some of that that really drove you to seeing the need for this book called I Quit, which is a phenomenal name, by the way.
Yeah, I Quit, Winning the War for Top Talent. That's the name of the book. And really what it is it draws to attention that there has been a huge paradigm shift in the workforce, and things are not going to go back to the way they had been for the last 30 or 40 years. Basically what we do is we explore the psychological, what's going on in the mind of the current worker, right, and we really focus in on what happened during the pandemic.
Yes,
which
right.
The pandemic created a significant emotional event in the lives of all Americans. And a significant emotional event is defined as something that is so impactful that it forces you to reevaluate your values and your entire value system. And that's what we kind of saw happening as people, they had a 2-week shutdown. They were like, wait a minute, why am I working so hard at this job that, maybe they don't appreciate me?
Yeah.
Or why am I driving 45 minutes to work when I can work at home? And they started to question their whole relationship with work. And that led us from the pandemic, and that gave us the Great Resignation, which a lot of people were just like, I'm not doing it anymore. I'm done. I'm not doing this and stuff. Then we focused in on the psychology of what happened, and we started to realize that there was a traumatic experience for most workers during the pandemic. Maybe you lost a loved one. Maybe you thought you were going to die, and maybe you got very sick. You lost your business. You lost your job, or you just were constantly worried about maybe your kids. And that can create trauma. And the American Psychological Association came out in November and said, all of their data shows that the American workforce experienced a thing called collective trauma during the pandemic.
Wow, so like just a few months ago, November 23rd.
Yeah, they just came out and all their data is showing it, because now we're starting to see the results of that trauma. And trauma changes the way your brain operates. It changes the neural pathways in your brain. The way you interact with people may be different. The way you approach decisions may be different. Trauma has a huge impact on how we live our lives. And some people maybe won't have any traumatic responses to cover, but maybe some will, and it starts to manifest itself. And so we started to look at what is going on in the mind of the average worker through this lens of the traumatic experience. And what we're seeing is there is a completely different viewpoint now on work. And what the Great Resignation gave us is now we're in the great disconnect, huge disconnect between what employees want and what employees think they want. And that is what we're in right now.
Wow, interesting. So as you start to think about that, really kind of laying the groundwork for, if I'm listening to the PioneerCast and I'm hearing you say this, I'm all of a sudden thinking about my team and those who are engaged and those who may be disengaged. What advice would you give, or maybe some that you wrote about in the book, to me as a leader on how to better understand, where each person on my team might be mentally, right? And then secondly, what advice would you give to me in order to better serve and lead those folks, given this whole great disconnect you're talking about?
Yeah, so if I really had to boil everything down from the 10,000 foot view, is you have got to get to know your employees. And I don't mean, oh, I know Bob, he has 2 kids and he lives on Mockingbird Lane. No, you really got to get to know them on what motivates them, what do they want out of their careers, how do they want to be led, what is important for their own career development. And when I attended the Pioneer Boot Camp, which was great research for the book, what I was able to witness what you were doing with the teams that you had, it was an eye-opening experience for a lot of these leaders and managers and supervisors. It's almost like the first time they truly understood the person they were leading through all the different tools and the ways that you were able to show them, to help to connect. Hey, I want to lead you. I want to lead you in the way you want to be led, because most of us lead in the way that we were led, which maybe not be. And then the way you were able to tell people and teach them to connect with their employees, if you can do that and truly know what they need, then you can start building relationships a long time. If you just are going along thinking, well, I know what they want, and all the stats show, I don't care how great of a business owner, you probably don't know what your employees are really thinking.
Yeah. You told a great story in the book about an executive who was at the boot camp that literally just chose to be transparent. And I think that particular story, which I'm asking you to tell here, really kind of represents where a lot of us are, where we feel like we have a really good relationship with the people around us and people in our firms. And then when we start to really dig down, maybe that's not the case. So share that story with us real quick from the boot camp.
Yeah, so in the book, I came from the political world, and so I was always surrounded by yes men and yes women. My jokes were always the funniest, and all my ideas were great and everything. And you start believing that. You really do. Trust me, I got pretty big. But when I was at the boot camp, there was a senior VP that was there, and you had given them instructions that they had to go and interview one of their employees. Right. You had given them some questions and things of that nature, and she did what you had asked. And, as usual, she's like, oh, everything is great. The employee thinks we're leading great. We're meeting all their needs. We have a great culture. They loved it. Everything's great. Until a week after the interview, that employee turned in their 2-week resignation.
Yeah.
And it came out that, they were just wanting you to believe everything was good, because the employees figured out it was a lot easier just to make sure that the leadership was fat and happy rather than dealing with the aftermath. Yeah. So even in our organizations, we might be surrounded by a bunch of yes men and yes women, because that's the path of least resistance. And unless you are truly getting to know and truly getting to understand what your employees need, you might just be in this fantasy world that you think everything you're doing is what they want. And what that executive really shared, and it was eye-opening for her, because she was like, I thought we had this great culture and stuff, but really we didn't. And they did a deep dive and really turned their company and made them even more productive. I think they even had a banner year the following year after all the stuff you did for them. But it was eye-opening just to watch that revelation happen real time at their boot camp.
Yeah. I just think about how we met and our relationship. We've known each other only about maybe a year and a half now. But I got to tell you, just as a reminder to all of us, we get so busy with get work and do work and surviving at the office and surviving at home that we kind of get just caught up in the lack of time. But I just want to take a moment just to reiterate how important spending time with people really is, right? And the connection here is you and I were introduced by a common friend, and Jason Williford, Culture Index. Many of you guys know Culture Index, who works with us. And the common denominator between all three of us is Tom Hill, right? Yes. Tom Hill, very well-known mentor of a lot of business owners, actually out of St. Louis, your area of the world. But it's just interesting to think about how Tom Hill and his love for people introduced, you to Jason, you to me. You were talking to me about this whole concept, and I said, man, we're doing a boot camp on the same topic. Come and join us. Yes. And boy, I'm glad we did that. I feel like we played just a smudge role in what you're doing. But I love your book, man. I'm telling you, I'm not a push the book on somebody guy, right? Some people might even think I don't even read. Hell, I don't know. But
there's an audiobook version too.
Don't tell me. But there is an audio version. But man, it is such a great piece for people to grab. It's an easy read, But if you manage people at any level, or I might even say if you're frustrated with kind of how your kids are going, it even kind of gets down into the how to handle kids thing, but just handle people in general. I'd really encourage you to grab it. Again, I'll post it on the podcast here. It's called I Quit, Scott Rupp. And it's Amazon top seller. Right
Amazon, the number one new release on Amazon, and you can get it on Audible and everything. So yeah, it's in iTunes as well. So yeah, it's been going great. Really think that what you said earlier was that we are connected by Tom Hill and everything like that because we're always looking to get better. And when I quit, got out of the politician mindset of, well, I kind of know this and I know that, and I realized I don't know anything. And there's a lot of people around me that know a lot of stuff that I can learn from. Yeah. And so when you were like, hey, Scott, come on down to the thing, I'm like, that's an opportunity for me to learn, for me to get better. And so I jumped at it. And that's what Tom always does is he puts people together because if you know that you can always do better, then that is a driving force. And what you're doing on your boot camps is giving people the tools to be better, not only just in their careers, but in their lives. And that's just God's work.
Man, thank you for that. I'm so glad you came. Hey, thanks for joining us and coming all over from St. Louis to Kansas City to talk to my team today. I mean, there was actually tears shed. So it was really intimate, great day today.
It was a great day and a great lunch.
Thank you. Yeah, glad you enjoyed that. All right, well, I hope you got a little bit out of that. You're going to see more stuff coming from us with Scott's book. It's a fantastic book. It's my kind of headline, I Quit. Just straight to the point. So we'll get that information to you. You'll likely just be able to click on the link in the bio there and go grab you a copy. Scott, thanks, bud.
Thanks, sir.
You bet.